I'm happy to welcome you in Kiev. My name is Margarita Lopatina. I'm a local Kiev tour guide, and I'm happy to invite you on a tour with me. We are meeting right now at one of the key sites of Kiev, one of the symbols of Kiev, Golden Gate, or the Great Gates of Kiev. This is one of the five things that are left in Kiev from 11th century. And throughout the centuries, this was the place where all honorable guests were welcomed in Kiev. You may ask why the Golden Gates are called the Golden Gates. And looking at them, you can hardly find gold, maybe a little bit on the very top. But actually, the gold, it's more symbolic. In Slavic tradition, we call something gold when we value something. Golden hands, golden heart, golden person, golden gates, because they were main entrance to Kiev. And right now, looking around us, it's very difficult to believe that even 200 years ago, there was nothing on this place. This was already the border of the city. But everything changed, and right now we're in a very, very heart of historical center. Anyway, this was the entrance. This was also part of the fortress. Back to 11th century, looking at the Golden Gates, we are right now on a side from the main body of the fortress. We are on the line of the moat. The way all Slavic cities were fortified, you have to imagine high rampart, and outside the rampart there was a moat. So we are sort of between the rampart and the moat right now. The person who is still on watch, fortifying the gate, it's Prince Yaroslav the Wise. He was the one who fortified the city. Also, you may ask what he's holding in his hands. It's another thing that we are about to see on a tour. It's a Cathedral of Saint Sophia of Wisdom of God, but we will see it later on the tour. So anyway, this Yaroslav the Wise, known for his wisdom by the people, that's why he's called the Wise. Local Kievans these days make joke that this is the monument to a man with Kiev cake. Speaking about Kiev taste, speaking about exploring Kiev from this side, Kiev cake, it's one of the must taste things. And right now I invite you to do this circle of honor, because the Golden Gates, again, the main entrance, not the only one, but the main entrance, so they require special attitude. Let's do the circle of honor around the Golden Gates. By the way, let's first say hello, so kind of pay tribute to Yaroslav himself. It was erected in 1982 during the Soviet period in Kiev. The authors preferred to stay anonymous, but there is a interesting way how they put a signature. Sculptures are known for their artistic hands, and also golden hands. So here they are. See how big those hands are? Really artistic hands. And this is the way to say hello, high five, hello, Kiev in this way. And we continue our circle. By the way, I also mentioned you 11th century monument, but the original relics of the Golden Gate, they are inside of what we see now. These are the reconstruction. It's like a sarcophag. These walls that we see outdoors, it's like the sarcophag that protects the original relics of the stones of the 11th century inside. Right now, because of quarantine, because of special regime, the monument is closed and you cannot go inside. But basically, it's inside where they keep and protect the original stones from snow, from rain. But at least a kind of a spirit of the medieval epoch it can give us. In Slavic tradition, when we speak about the gates, you always open the gates like this. It's never been like lifting them. This is something that the imagination of local architects, of the people who were erecting, who were doing the reconstruction back to 1982, this is something what they added. Also, another thing that is important here that is close to truth, it's this, they are showing us the original technique that was brought from Byzantium Empire. It's the mixture of clay, same bricks and the big stones. Around Kiev there were no big rocks, no mountains, so they had to invent certain ways how to save material. The most common material of building things, and actually the reason why not so many things left in Kiev from 11th century, because main constructing material, it was woods. So again, it's not so long-lasting architecture, the wooden architecture. Kiev's contemporary center coincides with the historical center, and it's always very active traffic around, people walk in and out, and one of the metro stations is also here, called Golden Gate. The green M over there stands for metro. In Kiev, metro of a green sign, because Kiev is very, very green city. And now this is the outer side of the Golden Gate. We are on the top of the hill, and on the bottom we should imagine that moat. The moat was not filled with the water, where people walk and actually go, the way goes more down all the way to the metro. Anyway, the moat was never filled with the water. It was just an obstacle for the enemies. Every time when there was the danger of enemies on approach, they had to burn the bridge. There was, of course, the bridge across the moat, but again, there were no lifting constructions. The lifting constructions were invented only in 15th century. So the only way to prevent enemies to hit the walls was to burn the bridge. So the phrase "to burn the bridge behind you," it comes from those early medieval times, maybe even from Kiev. This would be the look they were getting when coming to Kiev. Why Golden Gates called Golden Gates? One of them is that you had to pay entrance fee in order to enter the Golden Gates. Now the only Golden Gate where you have to pay the entrance fee is when you enter the metro station Golden Gates. This is where, of course, you have to get your token. But here, it's, as I told you before, it's more symbolic. Also, Kiev and 11th century was the period of development of Christianity. Christianity was brought to Kiev Rus, to Slavic lands, in the end of the 10th century. And when you introduce new religion to the country, to the people, you need some symbols that would symbolize, that would be the fortress, the basics for this religion. And the Golden Gates, you may think of other important religious objects, especially Christian ones, that have this gold symbolism. Gold is always associated with Jesus Christ, with heaven kingdom. And Golden Gates, there are one of the gates to Jerusalem were called Golden Gates. Also there is Golden Gates in Istanbul. And Christianity was brought to Slavic lands from Byzantium Empire, from Constantinople, former name of Istanbul. So the Golden Gate was also the symbol of the new Christian religion that was brought here. And of course, the road from the main entrance leads to the main temple, so-called Golden Road. We will take that golden pass. But before that, I want to show you something else.
Are you a cat or a dog person?
But even if you're a dog person, this cat is the worst place to not to miss in Kiev. Even though it's right next to the Golden Gate, and some people may say that how come that they put this monument? It's not appropriate next to such an important monument of such a size. And then you have this small, cute and commercial corner. But speaking about commerce and Golden Gates, and then all these things, that at some point it works. And the story behind this cat, it's not just a decoration of this corner, but it's a monument to a real cat that used to be a favorite pet of a restaurant on this corner. It's Italian pasta place. And the cat, by the way, depicted in its original size. So you can imagine that this cat had quite a good appetite. And there's a tragic story behind. There was a fire in that restaurant, and the poor cat did not manage to escape the fire. So he died at that fire. Since it's a real cat, his name is Pantusha, just like the name of that Italian restaurant. And in order to commemorate the memory of the favorite pet, they put this statue. But again, I mentioned this commercial part, and in order to make it maybe less tragic, the cat brings luck and fills your pockets and hands with gold, in case you touch it in a proper way. So there's a special way how you're supposed to touch the cat. So anyway, with one hand you touch the tail of the hat, with another hand you do this gesture. You are so cool. Yes, see, we have the assistants. And you touch the ears of the cat, and money is coming your way, definitely. So these hands will be full of gold, according to what they believe. By the way, on this corner there was a sparrow, but probably this bronze statue also got hungry at some point. So the sparrow is not there anymore. The street, it has the historical name. We just spoke about Yaroslav's Rampart, and this is the street of Yaroslav's Rampart Street. Every single house in this street has its own face. This street people call the Street of Dragons or the Street of Spirits because of so many different decorations located on the facades, and really it's visual pleasure to walk on the street, enjoying, and lots of food for your imagination. Let's see, so many different architectural styles from the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century. Over here, the smiling dragons, or some kind of a creatures with the human body and the dog faces, and also a dragon. This house is the oldest on this street from the end of the 19th century. Right now it's empty. During the Soviet period it was nationalized and it was the commune apartments. But really as if some kind of a castle, Biedermeier style, reminding some palaces and some like neo-Gothic architecture. By the way, this very street is like a museum street, based on how the facades look like. It's also a very international street because of so many embassies located in it. Right now we just passed by the residence of Indian representatives, across the street Polish embassy, further down Italian, French. Also very artistic street, lots of galleries, theaters located in here. And we are here also to take a look not only just at the parade facades, but I also want to show you the inner side of Kiev, something behind the curtains. We're about to dive deeper. Look at the facades, chestnut tree leaves decorating the balconies. So here is the portal to another side of Kiev, and we're gonna compare how these parade facades of Kiev look inside. It's a separate special world inside Kiev courtyards. And very typical for Kiev architecture to have several lines of the buildings in one street. So we just saw this building with the rich decorations on the parade facade. And once we entered the courtyard, you see that it's much more simple, without any wow effect. And the reason why, because nobody sees it. So why wasting money? All those decorations on the facade were done in order to attract attention, and not just attention of some wanderers like we are, or some tourists like we are, but of the potential clients. At the end of the 19th century, Kiev experienced the capitalistic boom. Population was growing, people needed apartments, and the houses were growing as well. And in order to sell the apartment for higher prices, you needed to advertise your house. And back to the times when there was no internet, no TV, the way to advertise was to decorate the facade of my income house, so-called income houses they were called, those facilities with the apartments. It was to decorate the facade. And here again, another possibility, this will be already the third building in the row. It was like a passage, portal, from one courtyard to another courtyard. It's very common thing for Kiev. It's much more simple. And also what we see here, Kiev contrasts, different levels, again, different sides. This very building up till recently was some kind of a sauna, spa center. The interesting thing about it, it is small from the outside, quite small from the outside, but much bigger from inside. Lovely day. So you can see that the space goes very much more down. That's because it used to be a bomb shelter left from the Cold War period. So we could accommodate all the citizens from this courtyard. So it was quite a funny combination. Spa center and sauna in a former bomb shelter. The life of Kiev courtyards. And the spring is almost coming. It's really nice with all the melting water. Courtyard known as a courtyard of ravens, and they are the same age as Ukraine itself, so sort of symbols of our independency, or some people say it's our local mini tower. And some people have pets as their pets. They have cats and the dogs, and there are also some people who prefer ravens. They are private pets of one of the local owners of the apartment. So this is it. We are right now on the golden street On the left of me, that's the Golden Gate where we've just been to. And here in this direction, right behind the Soviet building so the problem is that this building that Soviets put in the 30s as a special apartments for KGB officers, it's hiding from us St. Sofia Cathedral. So it kind of ruins this idea that the road from the main entrance leads to the main cathedral, just visually, because we don't see St. Sofia from this point. We will see it very, very soon once we cross the line behind it. So this is the building of KGB offices, which is where today National Security Services of Ukraine located. The building is quite enormous and monumental, but I should tell you that it's almost double of its size goes underground. But the Soviet days, the 30s, was known as the tallest building in Kiev because from the top floors you could see Siberia. Anyway, back to the surface from the underground, and this is one of the central Kiev streets, Vladimir Street, and goes right at the very, very heart of Kiev center, where everything was born, and where we are going right now, to the very root of Kiev, where the city of Kiev is found. So here we are at one of the main Kiev squares, Sofiyska Square, named after St. Sofia Cathedral. And sometimes people from all over the world, they come to Kiev only to see this place, St. Sofia Cathedral. It's the main cathedral from the 11th century. It's not only what you see outside, but the main thing is inside. Unfortunately, right now we are not going there. The video and photo shooting is not allowed on the territory, so you should really come with your own and see it with your own eyes. But at least, just to give you the understanding, what we see this cathedral today, it's dressed in the clothes of the 18th and 19th century. On the foreground, the bell tower, it's especially great example of Ukrainian Baroque style with all this crazy ornamentation. Baroque, by the way, wherever it travels, it acquires national traditions, national features. So as a part of the decoration, you see the Ukrainian flowers, typical flowers, the grapes, Ukrainian angels with the big cheeks, the faces of those angels, like the round shape face, and with the red cheeks, all these cute small things. But speaking about bigger and eternal things of the world, masштаб, it's what you see inside. Those are original frescoes and mosaics that are left inside from the 11th century. And if you're looking at the cathedral itself, look down from the main dome, which is the biggest one in the middle, look a little bit down following the white wall, and then you see the red bricks in between in the parts of the windows, right? It's supposed to be the windows, but it's the red bricks. So those are original bricks of the 11th century. Among people, they call this wall uncollapsible wall or undestroyable wall. From the inside, when you enter the cathedral, what welcomes you, what you first see, what impresses you the most, it's the image of Virgin Mary Aranta. Aranta, from Greek language, it means praying. It's a very not usual way to depict Virgin Mary. She's there without Jesus Christ. She's by herself, her hand up to the sky. And she's like a vessel ready to accept the holy gift on one hand. On the other hand, as I said, praying. And people believe that she's praying for Kiev. So until she's in Kiev, until she's praying, until this uncollapsible or undestroyable wall is standing in Kiev, Kiev is protected. And this is the huge meaning of this place for all our country. And of course, it's again not only artistic but also symbolic meaning. Today, this cathedral is not a functioning cathedral as a religious center, but of course, during the period of its existence, right from the very beginning, it was the residence of, again, head of religion but also the residence of Kiev princes. Already mentioned the Prince Yaroslav the Wise, who we met, remember, holding that cake. It's actually not the cake, but the model of St. Sofia Cathedral. So it was his residence. And of course, because of this square where we are, this was the place where all honorable guests were met, where they were deciding questions about war and peace, where all noble guests were welcomed. And one of these noble guests, already in the later period, already in the 17th century, it's the guy who is still here on the horse, Getsman Bogdan Khmelnitskiy. He is one of the heroes of Ukrainian nation, the man who gave birth to Ukraine as an independent country. Because all this time that we were speaking about the monuments of medieval times, we speak about not really Ukraine, we speak about Kiev Rus. This was the very first Slavic state that appeared on this territory, and if looking on today's map, this was the territory of today's Russia, Belarus, Ukraine. All of these territories were united into one state of Kiev Rus, and Kiev was the capital of that huge, one of the biggest states in Europe. Kiev, by the way, back to 11th century, was really one of the biggest cities. If you compare it to London, back to 11th century, Kiev had 50,000 people population, while London had only 5,000. You can compare it, maybe Constantinople was the center of that time, of those times, cultural life. It had 150,000 people population. So anyway, Kiev as a cultural, economical, as a big center of Eastern Slavic people. And everything, all the roots of all Eastern Slavic people, they are here in Kiev, and from this very land. So again, if you imagine how many layers, how many steps were touching this land, your feet may start burning or feel itchy because of this epoch scratching from the underground. But again, we are back to the surface, what is here above the ground. And what is also unique about this square, it's a unique combination. Oh, I wish you could see it with your own eyes in real and feel this atmosphere and the presence of all this epochs. Anyway, on one hand, we have the bell tower of St. Sofia Cathedral. Facing on the other side of the square, another bell tower of another cathedral of St. Michael, Golden Dome St. Michael's Cathedral. Today we are really lucky with the weather and with the clear blue sky. Spring is on approach. You can feel it in the air. And the blue walls of St. Michael's Cathedral, they're almost of the same color as the sky, so the golden domes in the distance, they are as if floating above the ground. Here in Kiev, we say that St. Sophia and St. Michael, they greet each other every day, wishing each other good morning and good night. So anyway, it's a unique combination of the two bell towers, and it's hardly anywhere else in the world you may see this, that the two bell towers of two Orthodox cathedrals facing each other. And what is in the middle, in front of us? Already mentioned, national hero Bogdan Khmelnitskiy. Back to the middle of 17th century, he was the one who headed liberating war of Ukrainian people against Poland. And here I probably should give you the tidbits of the local history. I told you about Kiev Rus as a Slavic state, and it existed up until the 13th century. 1244, it was the tragic year in the local history when the Tatar Mongols came. They defeated Kiev, they conquered Kiev Rus, almost destroyed. 50% of Kiev was destroyed by the Tatar Mongols, and out of those 50,000 people, they say only like 300 houses were only left, and mainly at the bottom part of the city, Podil. Here everything was in ruins, and the Tatar Mongols were here during 1 century, up until Lithuanians came. Lithuania and Poland, which was known as Rzecz Pospolita. When Ukraine became part of Rzecz Pospolita, Poland occupied or had more powerful position, so we tend to say that Ukraine was part of Poland. And Polish influence here was very, very big. Catholic religion, Polish landowners possessing the vast territories of Ukrainian land. The Ukrainian peasants had to work for Polish landowners. There were lots and lots of economical and cultural contradictions between Polish people and Ukrainian people. It all led to a big protest, and at the end led to the big liberating war. The man who headed that war was Bogdan Khmelnitskiy, and they did won in that war. And for the first time when Ukraine appeared on the map as an independent country, it was after that liberating war. Bogdan Khmelnitskiy started independent Ukraine, or started the way of Ukraine to independence, and now he's showing us the way to the very roots where it all started in Kiev. So if you are at Sofiyska Square watching at the monument of Bogdan Khmelnitskiy and need to get the directions how to get to the roots of Kiev, you may ask him. He's pointing you exactly the right way. We kept walking straight from Bogdan Khmelnitskiy where he pointed us, and over here suddenly on the asphalt, you know that Ukraine is not really famous for the quality of the road. Romans never made it all the way to Ukraine, but these bricks on the asphalt, they left them on purpose in order to symbolize that here we are crossing the border from the old city to the ancient part of the city. And here we are again about to meet the ancestors. Prepare. We are on top of Kyiv Hill, right in the very place where the Kiev Rus land has started. There are 3 bricks in front of us. They are not just some kind of bricks, but they have the inscription on them written that this is from where Russian land has begun. And really we're in this place, especially looking at this landscape, even though the architectural landscape of course keeps changing, but the natural landscape has been preserved centuries like this without any changes. According to the legend of foundation of Kiev, there used to be 3 brothers and 1 sister. They were traveling along the Dnieper river searching for a good location to settle, and they stopped here and settled on top of the hills that we see around us right now. Each of these hills that we look at, they are bearing the names of these brothers, Shikavitsa, Kharevitsa, and this one hill where we're standing at, this is Kiyevitsa hill. And it's easy to guess already that Kiev is named after the oldest brother. As the legend goes, they created the city and they named it after the name of the oldest brother, Kyiv. You may ask what happened to the sister. We have the river in Kiev named after sister, Libit. Anyway, This is the very roots of all Eastern Slavic people. They are here on this ground. What else we see here on the top of the hill? The great building. It's really on its location, since it's the National Museum of History. Then also this small hills that we see right now is a part of the natural landscape, but actually they are not. They are artificially made, and they remind us about the very first ramparts that used to surround the palaces that used to be located on the top of this hill. Fortunately, none of the palaces preserved. They were all wooden and were destroyed during Tatar-Mongol invasion. Also, the very first church, so-called Thesis Church, was on the top of this hill. Right now, it's left only in the memory and just the ruins. And of course, the area that we see from here, from the top, it's so-called, in Slavic language, so-called Passat, or the down city, Podil. In Ukrainian language, Podil means at the foot of the hill. And how the life was organized in Old Kyiv, in medieval Kyiv, that all nobility lives here. So that's why this city was called Upper City. All the princes, all aristocrats, all rich people were living on the top. And right now we can imagine ourselves being those princes looking from above to the very bottom, city where common people lived. And Podil, as I told you, at the foot of the hill, from Ukrainian language it can be translated like this: foot of the hill, or in the valley of the river. Podolu gori, at the foot of the hill, or in the valley, po dolinie, in the valley of the river. And this is exactly about Podil area, the city on 7 hills. That's if describing Kiev with one sentence, that would be the most appropriate, probably, or one of them. Kiev is double bilingual capital. Here we speak both Ukrainian and Russian language. And of course the symbol, or what gives the name to this street, it's the Church of St. Andrew. And we spoke about the legend of the foundation of Kiev, about the place. But you know that everything starts with the intention and with the idea. This church, it's the symbol of the idea of the future city. The legend about the Church of St. Andrew goes back to the very 1st century, when Apostle Andrew, first called by Jesus, he was traveling all the way from the Black Sea, all the way up north. This is, by the way, exactly how the Dnieper River goes. And according to the legend, he stopped here for the night, climbed these hills, and put his cross, blessing this land to become a beautiful city with lots of golden domed churches in it. The church that we see right now is, of course, not the church of the 1st century. And it was another love story that gave birth to this church. Not the love to God, but the love between men and women. And it was the Russian Empress Elizabeth, the daughter of Russian Emperor Peter the Great, who visited Kiev. She met here an ordinary Ukrainian guy and invited him to sing in her empire choir. And then it grew up into a very big love affair. She even unofficially married him. Locals were making even rumors that she ordered to build this church in order to have place to have some intimacy with her beloved. Of course, lots of songs, lots of poetry made about this church. And among Kievans, it's really the symbol of love. Love to God, and also a symbol of happy love union. Since Empress was happy with her beloved Cossack, they even, though it seemed to be unreal totally, but you see, when conquers all things, and when it's protected and blessed by Apostle Andrew, everything's possible. So the most Kiev street of all Kiev streets, that is how they call Andriivskiy descent. So another popular thing, they call it local Montmartre, and St. Andrew's Church would be like a local Sacré-Cœur. But of course it has its own peculiarity. Andriivskiy descent in Russian, Andriivskiy Spust, or Andriivskiy Uzviz in Ukrainian language. And actually it's not really descent, it's more rise, right? It's you need to climb up in order to reach the heaven. In order to reach glory, you need to put some effort in it. And here it's already the end of the street. If you look at the numbers of the houses, that would be already 33, 39. So the beginning of the street is at the very foot of the hill. And actually this was the street that connected the upper city with the lower city, the princess and the common people. It was 900 meters through 1,000 years long. The architecture preserved here, some of the houses are still even wooden from the middle of the 19th century, not more than 5 floors. And of course the atmosphere is very unique. Today it is turned into the museum under the open sky, but also open air market of different kinds of souvenirs. So it's like a touristic market, the most popular place to get all the souvenirs. Piece of recommendation, piece of advice for you here, of course it's the place to bargain. But the piece of advice is to go a little bit further down the street in order to find better prices and more authentic souvenirs. Here we are having our romance, our love affair with the city. At this very place, this would be appropriate place for me to finish this part of the tour. We did this passage about maybe 3-4 kilometers long, even though it was not straight line. We did a little bit of circles turning in the left and right, but I hope that it gave you a little bit of taste of Kiev city center. It gave you the possibility to admire and to enjoy the beauty of Kiev, its unique character, its unique atmosphere, which is of course needed to be tasted, to be touched, to be seen, smelled, heard with your own in real. So I hope to meet you in Kiev. With big love from Kiev, from Margarita. See you in Kiev. And just a little bit more like a teasers for your visits, for your future visits to Kiev. It's of course the views. Kiev is really rich with the beautiful views. The more access, the more open space you have, the more calm, the more patient, the more harmonic you get. That is also one of Kiev's therapies that really recommended to take at least once in a season. So once again, welcome to Kiev.